Welcome to ScratchStart. In this session, we are going to see the same counter task, but the counter will be like 3 times counter. I have created the same counter for the 3 times, but what we are going to do here is we will control the 3 counters just with a single logic DOM. So we will write the logic only for one time, but this one single writing this logic single time will control all these 3 counters in the browser. As you can see, I have wrote the HTML structure and CSS styling as always. So we have here we have the same elements and same buttons and everything on all the 3 counters. So we have to select the classes and buttons and everything. So we will select that. So before we have to be selecting the elements, we have to I am introducing a new selection method called querySelectorAll. Const I am creating an element counters and selecting it by document querySelectorAll, and the class I given class not count ID as counter. Why I am doing querySelectorAll means in the previous tasks sessions we have used getElement by ID and query selectors. Why we did that means getElement by ID is an unique ID, so we don't have to use query selectors. In little like a single query selector, it will single query selector will select only the first element this ID has or the class has. For example, here if I use the query selector and give it a class, you can see in the HTML file there are 3 elements with the class counter. If I use the query selector, it will select only the first element, first counter. It will just neglect the other 2 counters, but we have to select all the 3 counters simultaneously. For that purpose, querySelectorAll is a good choice, and that's how we can select. We can also use getElement by class too. It will also select the same way, but it will be really hard to implement in the upcoming logics, and it is also a old school method, so I am not going to use that method. Now, so I am using this counter, and for each, this is a method used to implement the logic I am going to write after this to each document, each section, like each division. That means each counter means for we have to write the function now. Function, I am giving the function name as counter. So now, as usual, we write the logic as usual, like we did in the previous task, for counters. First, we have to declare the initial count 0. Next, I am identifying the display and the buttons now. Count display, selecting it by from the counter. It is coming from counter query selector count. Why I am doing query selector here means I am writing this logic only for the one button, because I have already declared that querySelectorAll. So when I write the I am using this counters class to write this function. So when I write this function, this whole function will be executed to the counters variable here. So therefore the counter is selected, counter variable is selected through the query selector all, and the class is the query selector all has the class counter, so it will select all the counters here. So it will easy to execute. Next cost, we have the increase button selected by counter, again the same query selector, and the class is increase. Then we have class decrease button, then we have the query selector selected by decrease. So next, for the increase button, select the increase button and give it an add event listener, and the event is click. Give it a function, and the function is count equal to count plus 1, and that in changes count to display. The text content should change to the count value. Now the same way for the decrease button, select the decrease button and do one add event listener method, and the event is click. Execute a function, and the function is count equal to count minus 1, and then give it a count display text content, change it to count, and so that's all. That's how we control everything. When I reload, so I am reloaded, so when I click this this counter changes independently, and the second counter changes independently, and also the third counter changes independently. So see, by clicking it is changing, and it is also changing. So they all three changes independently. It happens because we selected all the counters with an ID counter through the query selector all selector. So when we write this logic, also for each method, in this for each method, for each of the counter, this logic will execute when we click the increase or decrease button. So that's how it happens. So consider like and subscribing if you like my work, and I will see you guys in the next session. Thank you.